Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Finally, a matchup between two big-name United States heavyweights in the United States. Andy Ruiz Jr. and Jarrell Miller will be facing off in August, and this will be featuring on the Terence Crawford-Israel Madrimov card, which is being fronted by the Saudis. So Riyadh season being taken on the road for the first time, going offshore from Saudi Arabia. First event offshore is in the United States in Los Angeles, and as you can see, pretty stacked card. Terence Crawford, Israel Madrimov, Isaac Cruz, Jose Venezuela, Tim Tszyu and Virgil Ortiz, and then obviously the big heavyweight matchup and a couple of other decent fighters below that as well on the bill. So a decent card, but this is a good matchup. And I've got questions about both these guys because I think based on what we saw from Jarrell Miller recently, if he doesn't lose a little bit of pounds, he's going to fade later in the fight. Andy Ruiz Jr., though, he's been out of the ring for a couple of years. Has not been seen since, the Luis Ortiz fight in 2022. It really has been a bit of a wasteland for United States action in terms of the heavyweights. Put aside what Top Rank is doing with Jared Anderson and Richard Torres, there is very little that's been happening stateside in terms of just general good heavyweight matchups. So you do have Andy Ruiz Jr., the former unified champion, versus Jarrell Miller, who was recently defeated by Daniel Dubois. But in that fight, Miller was, 330 odd pounds. He was way out of shape. And at the press conference, he did speak about that fight, a lack of preparation time, but he said there was all sorts of shenanigans going on ahead of time with the contract. There was only 2 weeks before it was signed. His own promoter, Dimitri Salita, was suing him for $5 million. As we know as well, Jarrell Miller has had all sorts of outside of the ring issues as well. Same to Andy Ruiz Jr. We'll come to that in a moment. Miller had been up on some carjacking charges, which have actually, as has been reported by Dan Raphael and some others, just been dropped this week. So obviously maybe his involvement in this card was contingent on that legal action going away. And it has. So Miller, and you can see here from the promo poster, this photo is about 10 years old. He's looking a little bit more sort of plump these days. But so too Andy Ruiz Jr. Ruiz is actually looks like he's ballooned up since the end of last year, but I guess inactivity will do that. He's been inactive. He's gone through a messy and public divorce, and now we're seeing him back. And questions about both these guys. Andy Ruiz Jr., with the inactivity, and not for the first time in his career, he's gone inactive for more than a year period at a time. What's he going to do? His style as a sort of front foot counterpuncher isn't necessarily also going to be one of those things that is going to tie Jarrell Miller down. Ruiz Jr.'s got some pop, he's got some fast hands, but as we've seen from Jarrell Miller, he's got durability, he's got an ability to soak up a lot of punishment. So this does have the makings, and there's all the ingredients for this to be, I think, a fan-friendly fight with a lot of punches. Miller coming forward, letting volume go, not necessarily the biggest puncher, but he will throw volume. And that could start to wear Andy Ruiz Jr. down, who I'm sure will be just banging away, countering and landing almost at will. But Ruiz Jr. and Jarrell Miller, after all this inactivity, what have they lost? Remembering both these guys as well, they're in their mid-30s now. And there becomes a point for some of these fighters as well where they do start to diminish. What we've seen in the past may not necessarily be what we get in the future. And with Jarrell Miller as well, if he's clean, and I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of testing in place for this fight because he's failed, 1,000 drug tests in his career. Jarrell Big Pharmacy Miller, as the moniker goes. A clean Miller clearly only has about 6 or 8 good rounds, the true volume, grind him into the dust type rounds. After that, we saw in the Dubois fight, and I think that was also due to the weight as well. He really went downhill fast. But even against likes of Lucas Brown previously, he wasn't quite the same. He's had the comeback from, his third or fourth failed, drug test. And I think a clean Miller is certainly a much more beatable Miller. But I do think that Andy Ruiz Jr., with the fast hands, he'll have to work to the body. He's going to have to try slow Miller down. He really is going to have to work to the body because Miller, that head is just like a rock. I don't necessarily see Andy Ruiz Jr. stopping Miller just through headshots. He's going to really have to try to work to break him down. To me, just looking at this, and because it's so far out, look, we're only in April and this is going to be August, we're going to have both these guys, I think, coming in pretty good shape. I don't think we see the same sort of Miller who's, way out of shape. I think it'll be a Miller closer to 300, 310 pounds, somewhere there or thereabouts. And in the press conference, he spoke about really killing himself in camp, that it wasn't going to be the same Miller. And actually on his Instagram page recently, he said, "They caught me slipping one time. The shrimp didn't beat me. I beat myself." And he spoke about that in the press conference as well, that Turkey Yellow Sheikh had said to him, "You beat yourself." But Miller, he took that opportunity. He said, "Look, I took a gamble, I took the fight." But there's the old saying, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. And Miller wasn't ready for that fight, and that probably did contribute down the stretch to him being so gassed, and that did allow Daniel Dubois to come back into that fight massively and ultimately stop him in the final round, because at a certain point, Dubois looked on the rack. It was a great fight, back and forth action, swings and momentum, but Miller sort of really slipped it away because he wasn't in shape. So with this fight, I'm sure he's getting paid handsomely, so too Ruiz. As we know, Ruiz hasn't been, he's turned down opportunities and been trying to ask for too much. And PBC, in terms of having heavyweight fights in the last couple of years, absolute wasteland. The heavyweights are expensive, and if you're asking for too much, you're just not going to get a run out if your name's not Deontay Wilder. And as it is at the moment, Wilder's part of the Riyadh season sort of scene in Saudi Arabia. He's fighting over there. The money is on offer. So Andy Ruiz Jr., if you probably was told, you either take it or leave it. And one thing that I did like from the press conference, you can go check it out at your leisure on YouTube channels that carry the full press conference. Jarrell Miller, I always find him much more likable when he's not playing the relentless heel. In this case, because him and Andy Ruiz Jr. do have some history, they're friends. It was more sort of camaraderie. It was more the affable Miller that I do think people do warm to a bit more. But I still think a lot of people will be going, how was Miller getting these opportunities? How is he even in the picture, given all the performance-enhancing drug situations in the past? And I would say it's boxing and boxing fans have a short memory. Maybe it's not as short for, Jarrell Miller in terms of fans, but I'm sure there will be plenty of people looking at this fight going, this is a pretty decent fight. And given we're not seeing many good and relevant heavyweight contenders from the United States in fights generally, and especially not matched against each other, I'll take it. And in general, this card, it's good. It's a really good card. And if the Saudis are going to be taking these shows on the road and having big heavyweight fights on them, more power to them. I'll be watching, that's for sure. What do you make of the fight, and what's your early prediction for this one? Part of it, I think, comes down to, who's going to turn up, who's going to be in shape, who's put the hard work in camp. As we know, Andy Ruiz Jr. and Miller sort of balloon up and down. And Ruiz Jr. actually said, and I'll just get back to my notes from the press conference, that you will see the return of the consistent and focused Andy Ruiz Jr. Does such a thing actually exist? I don't know, but I'd like to hear him sort of say that he's going to sort of put it in. And these guys must realize that you perform big here, you are actually going to put yourself in the shop window for a bigger fight and a much bigger money fight too. And with both these guys having the out of the ring issues, be it personal life and situations, or in Miller's case also involving substances, this is an opportunity for them to really relaunch themselves in a big way. Big win here puts them on to the next thing. It's not quite loser leaves town if you put in a good performance, but certainly you're in a good spot if you win. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.